Hello, everyone. Sorry for the delay. I like to start on time, so I'm all pissed off because my stupid Canon camera is a piece of garbage and it totally changed all its settings. But when I loaded everything up, I couldn't make it work, so no camera today. Sorry, guys. Anyway, there's an opening rant for you. Blah. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief. Woohoo, party! We're having a lot of fun this morning, chatting in the lounge and listening to this gentleman barking away his semi-annual Humphrey Hawkins testimony. Probably should put this on pause, though. I mean, maybe this is what screwed up my camera. I don't know. But anyway, I wanted to go back and listen to the rest of that when we're done our video here this morning. But anyway, we're having fun listening to the Fed, listening to talking Feds, listening to Chappelle doing his thing. But pretty wild to watch the price action. As we had sort of pointed out, we had a pretty monstrous buy setup there. I don't know, maybe about a few days ago, I don't know, middle of last week. I get the impression it was just sort of a situation where the market was egregiously oversold. We had histograms all embedded on the bear side. Anytime you see where the country funds are heavily oversold, usually the S&P 500 also gets pretty oversold too. Didn't quite get the medium term oversold. Maybe that's a little bit of a warning that this isn't the bottom. But when you have all the histograms all embedded deeply on the negative side and this sitting down below 20, and then you get the crossover, woohoo, big things can happen. So not a big surprise to see the stock market jump up the way that it did last week. Having said that, it almost feels like this was almost kind of like a buy the rumor, sell the news scenario. In that, we do have these, and also too, I think I've told you guys that we have, some really interesting celestial periods here. There's planets that are moving from one constellation to another constellation, aspects and all that kind of fun stuff. So there's all that going on. We have what's historically called the Ides of March coming up here, the middle of March. Interesting, I got a notice of assessment. You must pay Revenue Canada X amount of tax dollars by the 15th. So there's probably a lot of people around the world who are getting those notices, and people who have to pay their taxes on a quarterly basis. Probably a lot of wrangling around that. What do they have to sell to actually generate some money to pay the tax man? And then, as I said, Chair Powell speaking today, but big FOMC meetings coming up here on the 21st, 22nd kind of idea. Policy, so really screwy environment right now. And, if anything, somebody posted in the TRI lounge here first thing this morning, which I think was probably absolutely apt. Let's see if I can find it, back beginning of the day, and we have a fun time on the TRI lounge, just talking, usually talking smack, we're just sort of banter, but sometimes some funny gifs. And Effie, I think, is this gentleman's name, although I don't know how to maximize this image. Anyway, this is what he posted in the lounges today, and actually I think that was spot on. I noticed, I don't know whether it's my computer needs rebooting or this Rocket Chat is just gobbling up insane amounts of resources, because I have Rocket Chat and Discord going simultaneously, and I think it's just absolutely slowing the computer down horrendously. But anyway, look at that. It's still not, this was just one image, but I maximize the screen. You can see the computer just can't keep up. Anyway, there's the image. I think this is some sort of famous chef guy that does that. But I thought that was an interesting share by Effie this morning. Absolutely spot on. But you look at the market itself. I mean, look at this. The stock market. This is This is exactly Effie's image. If we take something like the Dow or any of these markets, really, you can see as soon as Mr. Powell started speaking, he started speaking at, I think it was about, I think it was about 7 o'clock my time here on the West Coast, and you can see the whole damn market just swooned on his talk. And of course, before he has these congressional testimonies, he has sort of like a speech that he does right at the beginning of the broadcast, and that's disseminated a few minutes ahead of time. So people got the opening statement, and the opening statement basically said interest rates still have to remain high. Inflationary pressures are still very strong, and if anything, rebounding a bit of late. And it would be irresponsible of us to talk about actually lowering interest rates or even halting interest rate increases, because if you do that, inflation has a nasty habit of coming back very, very quickly. So they haven't even started talking about lowering interest rates. They haven't even started talking about, okay, we're in front of inflation. And you see month after month, if the market gets any kind of sort of breadth of, oh, hey, this data is kind of weak, that means stock market can rally. Then the damn stock market takes off like a rocket here. Actually, we're watching the ES pretty closely. I mean, the ES was working its way lower. And I'm sure that when he saw this chart the other day, he was like, what the hell are you stupid kids doing? I told you to go down, not up. Oops, where the hell are we here? Let's see if I can maximize this window. That's the one I want to hit. I'm sure he saw this over the past couple of days, and he's like, now this is not what's supposed to be happening here. So, he's come out with his testimony. It's an interesting location for this counter trend rally to fail. This is like Wyckoff check 101. So you can see the M top, bearish market structure up top. Market absolutely puked out. It actually looked like we had a gap theory situation where it was actually painting a nice downside target. That's what these levels were. But then, like I said, our little breadth indicator was indicating that the market was just way too oversold and everybody was short. So in typical stock market fashion, when everybody's short and everybody's looking down, what do? They take the market up. Now, over the past couple of days, you could say the past 3 trading days, had a scenario where people were actually like, oh, hey, maybe we're back into a bull. And of course, I think this was sadly by the rumor. And now he's come out and he said, nope, there's no change to the way we're thinking. Still expect higher rates and sell the news. So, there's your backdrop for the market, up and down like a horse drawers, as they say. I did see somebody in the lounge pointing out that this is classically what's called an empire. Very, very difficult trade to take. Because, and of course, this is predicated on the market finishing here. I mean, the day's still young. It's only 9:15. The market's still got, 4 hours. We might actually see he finish speaking, and then the market starts to work its way back up. I don't know. I have no way of knowing exactly what's going to happen here. My hunch is that risk on. Let's see, got to get this. Actually, my hunch is everything is coming off. The only thing that seems to be rallying, and David O, and it was interesting because we even had a question about this the other day. David O had pointed out last week that he got the impression that this right shoulder, this correction in the US dollar, it wasn't going to get all the way down to this left shoulder level. And you can see how they brought the market down, they rallied it up, they tried to go after the lows just yesterday, and then with him coming out and saying, well, we're still probably going to be raising rates, and don't kid yourself, folks. We're still on the warpath. Look how that US dollar is just steamrolling higher here today. Do we rally up and hit this symmetrical level for the head and shoulders and this trend line and then fail? Maybe. I will say though that that's a pretty darn powerful reversal, and what's going on in the broader market. You can see Euro getting smoked. Actually, we should check in with Stuart. He's probably happy to see that. Today is Tuesday, by the way, in our after party. We will have a nice conversation with TRI's CTO. In fact, Stuart, you want to say hello to these good people in the public?
Hi, everyone.
There you go. Thank you, Stuart. And that's Stuart without the T, if you're ever curious as to how to properly pronounce Stuart's name. And what is it, about 5 or 6 years in, I'm still trying to get it right. Anyway, so a euro getting smoked. And are you happy to see a lower euro? I think you would be.
Yeah, as long as we don't need to import anything.
All right, there you go. Actually, natural gas prices have just absolutely collapsed, so it's kind of interesting to get your take on all that. Japanese yen getting smoked. So European currencies, the Swiss franc getting smoked, the euro getting smoked. Oh, let's head on over to Asia. First and foremost. And I find it hilarious that when I hear people talking about, oh, well, the BRICS nations, they're going to form their own currency and they're going to take over the US dollar. I mean, hello, people. And anybody who's sitting there going, are you sure you understand this? The Chinese currency is still pegged to the US dollar. So I find that hilarious. So you can't even include China in this conversation. And actually, oh, by the way, thought it was interesting. I saw that exports and imports are collapsing in China, but because they have such strict policy on who can actually sell into the Chinese market, the imports are falling like twice as fast as the exports because the internal economy in China is absolutely crumbling. So as a result, their trade surplus is going up. It drives you crazy. I think the first 2 months of 2023 here, China's trade surplus was something like plus $100 billion. So, I mean, Winnie the Pooh's sitting there going, hey, that's more money in my pocket. I ain't got anything to complain about. Anyway. So point of the matter here is all the currencies are all coming off. It doesn't matter whether it's Asia, and that's our Japanese yen and Australian dollars. I like to use those as our Asian proxies. Whether it's Europe, and on here we happen to have the Swiss franc, which is a pretty good sort of measure to work with gold. Swiss franc and gold usually move in unison. And even other North American trading pairs, the Canadian dollar is getting smoked versus the US dollar. And as we pointed out here recently, is this an inverted head and shoulders that's working away on the US dollar index? I tell you, after his testimony today, it sure as hell looks like it. And also, too, we've had rhetoric coming out of like central bankers in Canada where they're saying that we're officially done raising interest rates. Now, I don't think you ever, I mean, hell, every single person watching this video, every single TRIer, you all know how much credence we should actually put into central bankers either, number one, knowing where the hell the economy's going, because frankly speaking, they're terrible at predicting what's going to happen next. Or number two, and this is the worst part about it, are they actually telling us the truth? Because frankly speaking, I think they lie right to our faces. Because they have a very specific agenda about keeping the bank's business model moving. It's a cartel. They work for themselves. It would be like asking OPEC, are you going to supply the world with oil to meet the world's demand needs? Or are you going to satisfy your own cartel's interests? You all know how that answer goes. So, point I would just make with all this is I think that the market was kind of lulled into the Americans are done raising interest rates. Americans are done. And I think today, Mr. Powell just put a big bucket of water on that. I am going to be very interested to see how Bitcoin acts, because I'll be honest with you. Well, I'm generally honest with you. I don't usually lie. It was really interesting to watch. Bitcoin was following the whole risk market. And our system actually spat up a buy signal on Bitcoin right in here, and unfortunately I fat fingered the trade. So I'm long from a terrible level. And ironically enough, if I was actually long from where I'm supposed to be, I would actually be at scratch. But we did have this railroad tracks on this 4-hour chart come in here yesterday. And so just as a hedge and just out of curiosity, I strapped on a short here just to see how this would go. Would the railroad tracks play itself out? Interestingly enough, I still think that we need to work our way down into this level down in here. Technically speaking, this is working. That is a lower high and lower low. But I was fascinated to see the way that Bitcoin acted in here. And I have to say, I have to reiterate, number one, the banking cartel is a private organization. Everybody in the world is convinced, especially about these CBDC things, central bank digital currencies, that this is some sort of big sort of world government gonna take over the world, and everybody's going to be issued a cell on the blockchain, and everybody's going to be under direct central control by governments. But I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, there is no way Joey Diamond wants you and the public to know for reality what is actually happening behind closed doors at JP Morgan, or the people at Goldman Sachs, or the people at Merrill Lynch, or Mr. BlackRock Capital. There's no way he wants you to know what he's doing, because in that way he can't finesse you out of your money. And actually what I see in the marketplace constantly is, they ramp the market up, get everybody all excited, come out with a whole bunch of news to get you all optimistic. You go and take your hard-earned money, you buy the top of the market, and then they pull the rug out from underneath the market, and let's come out with a news article about Bitcoin and Binance running a scam 5 years ago. That'll get everybody nice and bearish, and price dumps because you guys all panic. I mean, that's just the way the public works. So I don't think for a moment the Fed has any interest whatsoever in putting the kibosh on Bitcoin. I have no doubt in my eyes. In fact, I've said this repeatedly. I believe Bitcoin was actually created by George Bush Sr. and all his CIA cronies. But anyway, that's here nor there. The point here is that when pressed by the politicians today about crypto specifically, and Bitcoin was right on its lows, and it was puking out here along with all the rest of the stock market. Keep in mind, stock market, it's now starting to enjoy a bit of a bounce here, but the stock market, while Bitcoin was actually recovering here, you can see the stock market was making new lows. And it's interesting how NASDAQ's holding in here nicely along with crypto. Look at Litecoin. Litecoin's got a W working. What the heck's going on here? And I also noticed too, I thought it was interesting, somebody mentioned in the lounge, Cripple was up on the day. It's funny because I went and bought some of this because our weekly commodity trend survey said, hey, you probably want to step in there. But there quite a few of the cryptos were down. Of course, our crazy little, I don't even want to say this. Look how close we're coming to our next sell half on a double level. I was asking our DeFi manager how that was coming along. Maybe in the after party, we'll get an update on how that's looking. But isn't that remarkable? And then we got another one here. This is Frax. This one's coming up into a double level here that we bought. And you can even see double, very doable. Well, here it is. So, I mean, this is what we're going to teach you here at TRI. Do you want to learn how to do this? It's up to you. I've been doing this now with the public for 8 years. I mean, there's nothing really new going on here. And what's fascinating is at the end of the year, I remember, doing tons of these videos. Nobody interested in crypto, nobody interested in the shalt coins and all that kind of talk. And yet, Jesus, if you had positioned yourself correctly, holy crap, this is ridiculous what's going on here. But the point that I would just make, and this is where I was going with all of this, my apologies. Mr. Powell was pressed specifically. What do you think about these cryptos? We should regulate the crap out of them. Wait a minute. And his response, which I think was absolutely perfect, is he said, I mean, I'm paraphrasing. I don't really care about crypto. It's not really that big of a deal to me. I mean, technically, Bitcoin is Bitcoin. Bitcoin, they got 21 million coins out. There's a proof of work model. There's people out there mining. It's a business. If anything, the Fed needs to see growth. The banksters need to see growth, or else this whole damn fugazi collapses. So if this is a growth industry, well, then rock and roll. Let Bitcoin do its thing. What he specifically said, though, and this is, I think, what was most important, is he said that if you have the audacity to come into the market and do something like a quote-unquote stable coin, well, the people that buy your stable coin have to feel as though there is actually something behind the coin. It's not a fraud. And in essence, he just said that the only thing I care about is that stable coins are held to the same standard as any money market fund out there in the marketplace. I've got better part of 100 G's sitting in a money market fund in one of my retirement accounts. I want to know that the 100 grand is staying there as 100 grand. And the only way that happens is if the money market is forced to report that, yes, actually every single unit that we issue is backed by $1 in the bank. It's just common sense. And what I noticed is as soon as he said that, Bitcoin just started to crank right back up. No comment about should we outlaw cryptocurrencies. Didn't say anything at all to that. And frankly speaking, as a Fed governor, it just makes sense. The one thing that he's most concerned about is he doesn't want to see, and unfortunately our CTO here is a big fan of this gentleman, but the stuff that happened with that Luna, that can't happen. You can't have the system operate efficiently and smoothly with the Lunas floating out there in the world. The FTXs and this sort of basically blatant fraud about what the heck is going on behind the scenes. And I have to agree with him. I actually think that makes a lot of sense. It's not very popular in the space, but the irony of it all is it has nothing to do with Bitcoin. You want to go invest in Bitcoins? Buy your Bitcoins? Awesome. Go buy your Bitcoins. My suggestion, of course, here is if you are going to buy your Bitcoins and you're going to invest in this, let's try and figure out value. And, don't chase. I mean, if you're going to buy down oversold markets, washed out, okay, that's cool. The sad thing about Bitcoin, and I did the weekend show here, is technically we do have this inside bar working on the weekly price charts. That until this fractal actually turns around and we get a bullish fractal, I have to be thinking cautiously here, folks. I really do. Having said that, I don't see any imminent meltdown. And as I said there a moment ago, when Mr. Powell was pressed and Bitcoin price was dumping and it had the green light to puke out here, he was like, man, just make sure that if you're going to do one of these stable coins, that it follows all the regulations that all the other money market funds out there in the world follow. And like I said, I think actually that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so that's sort of the overview of today. What time is it? Yeah, it's about a half an hour we did that, and maybe a little less. I mean, I got to say, things like Litecoin, putting in a W here, that's a tradable bottom. It's not bad. I did also notice, and I think a lot of people kind of got this sort of, oh God, Powell's going to speak. And, if anything, it was like buy the rumor, sell the news. But now it almost feels like, okay, the news is out. Now what? And, it's interesting. I run day trading plans. We have Battle Stations group. And I'm a big fan of trying to trade at extremes. So I'll just finish off the video with this. If I was day trading, I don't really have any extremes here right now. In fact, what I like to do is drill down to a 4-hour chart and start to draw horizontal support and resistance. I was telling somebody on the site about this yesterday, but it's not something that's just sort of brand new right off the street. First, the level 1 education program that we teach you is just about building your plan, trying to, teach you a couple, one trend following setup, one range following setup, and just let you, and educate you on how to build a plan that reflects who you are and you're trading. We're using things like ATR, horizontal support and resistance for trade location. I think it's a little bit more advanced concepts. Level 2 for horizontal support and resistance. ATR, actually, we don't get into level 3. But anyway, point here is you can see horizontal support and resistance for me was a rally against these highs. You can see how that came into play yesterday. And then support would be against these lows, which was the panic dump low there that we saw about a week ago. And then remember, we had that crazy ass buy signal. So dead cat bounce, rally up into resistance. You know, Julian loves to talk about his Tom DeMark indicator. I've personally found that it's very handy to have it on the screen. You can kind of see heads up that, hey, maybe things are getting a little overdone. So we had 8s and 9s coming in here. Not a big surprise to see a bit of a stall, but I would have been hunting trade location around this horizontal support and resistance. So with the breakdown coming in here, it's a little head and shoulders. I actually think the head and shoulders has kind of played itself out, but no trade. Convert, and then same thing. I do the same thing every single morning. Look at the oil market. So here we were coming down. You can see we did come down, as we're trading away here into both. It looks like, actually, interestingly enough, crude's come off a chunk here, right? Oh, that's interesting. We actually have come into a trade location. So when I'm done here, I might even drill down lower time frames, take a look at that. We also had, which was interesting, we had gold come down into a potential trade location, horizontal support and resistance. You can see how far away we are from ATR. And on this event down here this morning, you can see I'm underwater on this trade now as it is. But on this dump here this morning, I might even get stopped out here pretty soon. We did put in this nice double bottom here. And the double bottom came in on a pretty substantial bullish divergence in momentum. Through the ATR levels, through the horizontal support and resistance, there's the double bottom. And Brian just basically went and bought the W here. Not a big surprise. Very typical day trade. We'll see how that goes. I mean, I'm looking for a revisit of the 50% rule. This is just nothing more than just GAN 101. And a revisit of the VWAP. It looks like the market stalled out here a little bit. I'm now underwater a little bit, but it's a trader's life. It's the way it goes. So I'll be sort of watching how this goes through the day. But that wasn't a valid El Tangonator setup for me. And the El Tangonator just simply says, try and show me a half-decent trade location. We had a visit of the standard deviation band to the downside. We had bullish momentum divergence come in on MACD. Willie was stupidly oversold. And we got a bit of a rally. Now, it looks like this was a 4-hour candle body low. My hunch is there was a bunch of guys that went long off that 4-hour candle body low. We rallied back up to their level, and they hopped off. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, this is a trader's life. But if you did see that earlier and you're kind of like, whoa, what's going on over there? Well, there is actually a very typical day trade that Brian's working right now. All right, I think that's about all I really want to comment on today. That's about a half an hour. As I had said earlier, big thing of today, obviously, is Powell. And, stocks muted ahead of Powell's testimony. So you can see last time I had updated this, this was before the market broke. So the whole market was sort of waiting for him to speak. You can see the market did come off a bit here. Have we actually bottomed yet and have started to turn? Ironically enough, when I'm done this video, I'll probably just go back and listen to the rest of his testimony later on this morning. One thing I will say that actually leads me to believe that he is getting what he wants is I've been showing you guys the big criticism from a guy like Stanley Druckenmiller, who I really like to follow, is that when they did both taking interest rates to zero and the ridiculous bailout for the corporations, shouldn't we debate mortgage futures, blah, 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 the retail sales numbers went absolutely insane. So this was a heads up that the inflation problem was going to be absolutely ridiculous. This should have never happened. Powell himself, when we were down here and he was demanding stimulus and taking interest rates to zero, He said all he wanted was for the market to get back to pre-sickness levels, but we went way too far. Retail sales above 20%. Stanley Druckenmiller's coming up going, why are you killing our economy? Why are you doing this to us? So you can see since they've started to raise interest rates in earnest, that number has now, we've actually started to get this number back into acceptable territory, 3%. So this is achieving Mr. Powell's objective and the Fed's objective. So it is working, the increase in interest rates. The question ultimately is, where the hell's the bottom? Because this train now is full steam ahead. Yesterday, I think we took a look at the money cycle, and we showed you how you should see some sort of pivot in the 4-year monetary cycle somewhere around the middle of the summer. My hunch is by the time we get to the spring, summer, this number will be well below sort of Fed's objectives. I can hear it out in the public. People are really bitching and complaining about how tough the economy and economic times are right now. I can see it at TRI, the amount of activity. Nobody has their stimmy checks, so nobody's just going and blindly buying crypto and bidding it up to the moon right now. And really even penny stocks as well. So the takeaway I would have here is that the Fed is getting its desired results. And it's just really a question of how long now, since it's now March? How long until we actually get to the point where the economic data starts to show that, yep, they've officially put this inflation problem to bed. I'd also say, too, the situation over there in Europe seems to be calming down a bit. If anything, people aren't really worried about Russian tanks storming the streets of Paris and Berlin. And it's really actually turned into almost like just a border clash between those two countries over there. And as we pointed out, and we'll talk more about it with Sjord in a few minutes, things like food prices, energy prices starting to calm down. So, hopefully, calmer heads prevail here going forward. All right, I think I'm done with my rant for the day. PMA for the win. Slow and steady wins the race. Looks like markets are stabilizing, and frankly speaking, the reaction out of crypto is a heck of a lot better than the reaction out of the stock market. So you should all take a sort of sense of relief. And I've said this to you repeatedly. I still think pullbacks are actually buying opportunities in crypto. And if I do get dips into reload zones, and they're on names that I can buy comfortably, I'm so there. It's just the prices are a little bit expensive right now. So I'm just taking it slowly. All right. Have yourselves a great day. PMA for the win. Hope you got some value out of that. All the best. And the only thing left for Brian to say is bye for now.